Anyone has ever used Firebase before? You did, yes? So, and from your experience, do you agree that it makes your app development much easier? Yes, it does. Me too, I agree. Now we're going to see how it makes your life as a developer much easier. So, what is Firebase? Or what was Firebase before it even became Firebase? Let's go back to 2011. In 2011, Firebase was just a startup called Involve. As Involve, it provided developers with an API that enables the integration of an online chat in their websites. What's interesting is that the developers were using this API of Involve not just to send chat messages, but to send application data. They were syncing the application data in real time across their users. For example, the website consisted of a game. They were sending the game score in real time instead of sending just chat messages. This has led the founders of Involve back then to separate the chat functionality from the real-time architecture. And in 2012, Firebase was created as a separate company where it provided backend as a service with real-time functionality. And after that, Firebase started raising some millions of dollars from seed funding until finally in 2014, Firebase announced that it had been acquired by Google for an undisclosed amount. So I'm really glad Google has bought Firebase, has acquired it, because we got so many tools after that date. Now, why would you use Firebase? First, it accelerates your app development by giving you the building blocks that solves common and core problems in app development. Second, it helps you run your app more efficiently by giving you insights when you need it, by improving your app quality and helping you increase the user engagement. And finally, you can tailor Firebase to your needs as you scale. So it offers you control, flexibility, and transparency. Now today I want to dive into one part of these, which is the first part, how Firebase accelerates your app development. So this is what Firebase does for us. Firebase provides fully managed backend services just to solve these many common and core problems we might face. With a way for our users to validate their identities without the need to implement all of the back-end work ourselves. And compared to using all of these authentication APIs, Firebase handles a lot of things for us out of the box. Now, before we dive in Firebase Authentication really deep into it and see how it works, it's really nice to go into the fundamentals of identity and access management. This way we'll understand really what Firebase is making easier for us. So in this part, we will try to answer together some definitions of the terms related to identity and access management. First question, what's an identity? How can we identify ourselves online, for example? Usernames. Exactly, username, email ID.
Facebook.
Yes, yeah, like your email ID to start small. What else?
Phone number?
If you want, yes, phone number. Your face recognition. My face is my ID. What else? Fingerprints.
Eyes, yeah.
Yeah. So this is identity. In fact, identity is anything that identifies something uniquely. It could be your username, email, etc. Second question, what's an authentication? We're talking about Firebase authentication. What's authentication?
Making sure you are who you claim to be.
Exactly. So it's verifying the user ID. Exactly. So it's anything that verifies an identity. If it's an email, it could be a password. If it's a credit card, it could be your PIN. This is it. This is authentication. Now, authentication became a very familiar word that we use every day, but we might sometimes confuse it with another word, authorization. What's authorization?
Saying I approve of this.
Yeah, what's to authorize?
Making sure you have access to what you're trying to get to.
Yeah, so it's like granting the user access to your system. Let's have an example. For example, if now I send you a link to a public tweet on Twitter, and you don't even have a Twitter account, would you be able to see it?
Yes.
Yes. Why? Because
It's public.
yeah, it's public. And when you're not logged in, you can only see public profiles and public tweets, but you won't be able to see your own feed. You won't be able to retweet or like or follow someone. These are two different authorized sections in Twitter. In Firebase, there's something interesting called anonymous authorization. And it means that even though you didn't explicitly log into a certain application, you can still access certain parts of it. And when you log in, all of what you did will be transferred to your own ID. Nothing is lost. So this is authorization. Determines access levels and user privileges. Now, today, a password is no longer enough to protect our data online, our personal information, or prevent access to our online accounts. Well, this is where multi-factor authentication comes into place. It brings a second layer of security in addition to the standard password layer. So multi-factor authentication is a security method that requires that we authenticate not by one factor, but by two and more factors to identify the user's identity. And here by factor, what I mean by factor is evidence. How can I prove that this person who is trying to log in with this account is indeed who she is pretending to be? So what are those factors? We talk about factors, credentials, what are those? These are called factors of authentication or authentication factors. They are generally separated in three categories, which are known as something you know, something you have, and something you are. Now, to talk more in detail about these, something you know requires the user to know some information to be able to log in. For example, we just said that before. What do you know to be able to log in? Your email, password, ID, PIN, for example, to be able to log in. Something you have, actually the knowledge factors, if applied alone, like the password itself, offer very little security. So we better implement another factor with them. The possession factors require the user to have something in order to log in. What do you have? You have your
fingerprint.
under. Something you have is like your credit card, private key, security tokens. What else? You can have your like employee ID card. Something you have is like an OTP, a one-time password when they send you a verification code on your phone. Your smartphone itself is a possession factor that you can have an authentication of.
So your phone number when somebody sends you
This
a
is
code.
something you know. When someone sends you a verification code, this verification code is the possession factor. You have it on your phone. Inheritance factor. Inheritance comes from the word inherent, which means like can't be separated from. And here in the factors, it means it refers to a biological trait of the user, like fingerprint, your face recognition, your voice recognition, your iris scan, your retina scan. What else? Have any one of you taken a course on Coursera.org before? Yes? There is a way on Coursera, they can identify you, but the way you type. They make you type a paragraph, and then they identify and know if this is you who's typing or not. It's really, really interesting. So these are the factors of authentication. Now, when we apply this multi-factor authentication, no one can access your accounts without knowing the second factor, even if they know your password.